This is it, guys. Finally, Perodua's larger flagship SUV has been launched. We've heard about this coming for years now, as early as 2023, and we've known it by a number of names. First by its code name of D66B, and then either as the Perodua Nexus or the Traz. Now that it's finally here, we now know it's called the Perodua Traz. The name as in Teras BM for core, and the core principles of Perodua: simplicity. It can also mean trust, as in the trust that the public has put onto Perodua in delivering reliability. Anyway, let's take a closer look at what this new SUV model is all about. This video is sponsored by Hong Leong Bank. If you're looking to buy a new Perodua, including the new Traz, you can now get fast loan approval for Hong Leong Bank car financing at any Perodua showroom nationwide. All you have to do is bring your MyCard, driver's license and income documents, and you can get your loan approved instantly. Firstly, let's start with the pricing. Surprisingly, there are only two variants for now, the Traz X and the H. There is no flagship AV. That's a little bit weird, but more on that in a little bit. The Traz X starts at 76,000 ringgit, while the H, now the range topper, goes for 82,000 ringgit. If there had been a Traz AV, that will likely be priced too close to the 90,000 ringgit mark. That is a price that Perodua doesn't have many fond memories of. As you remember, that's what the Perodua Nautica was sold for all those years ago. Compared to the Artiva, the new Traz is around 14,000 ringgit more expensive spec for spec. That's not a small amount by any measure. And if you factor in the current rebate offers for the older model, the real difference is actually around 20,000 ringgit. By the way, this D66B is launched nearly 2 years late in Malaysia, with its original launch window after the 2023 ASIA was delayed by the whole Daihatsu safety scandal. The development project actually started way back in May 2021 at a cost of 563 million ringgit. Perodua targets to sell just under 2,000 units of the Traz every month, which is lower than the Artiva that averages between 2,005 and 3,000 units per month. Next, let's move on to what this car actually is. Simply put, it's a straight-up rebadge of the Toyota Yaris Cross. But if what you have in your head of that car looks a little bit different from this one, that's because you're thinking of the wrong Yaris Cross. You see, there are two completely separate and different versions of that model. There is one made for European and Japanese markets that's a little bit smaller, that's built on Toyota's own TNGA platform. And then there is a separate, slightly bigger, slightly more basic versions made for emerging markets such as ASEAN. That, on the other hand, is built on Daihatsu's DNGA platform. But weirdly enough, even though it's built on a Daihatsu platform, there isn't a Daihatsu version of that car. Not here, not Indonesia, not anywhere in the world. It only exists as a Toyota and now a Perodua. That also means that there isn't a JDM model for future owners to convert this car into, because it's not on sale in Japan. So while the Artiva can be converted into the Daihatsu Rocky, Toyota Raze, or if you really want to be different, a Subaru Rex, the Traz can only be changed back into its original Toyota Yaris Cross look. This, by the way, is now the fourth Perodua model to be built on the DNGA modular platform after the Asia, Artiva and Alza. But among the four, this is the model to have the least amount of unique Perodua bits and pieces both on the outside and inside. Perhaps that is because there isn't a base Daihatsu model for Perodua to build its model on top of. Usually they would take a basic Daihatsu model and upgrade it into a car with specs and equipment levels Perodua owners have come to expect. But with this one, they've instead started with a more premium Toyota model and had to downgrade it, move it down market to fit the Perodua brand image and, of course, pricing. So at the front, of course, it wears Perodua's own face, complete with this sharp octagon-shaped grille with inserts similar to the Alza. And even moving further down, there's a lot of that X-based design features we've already seen on previous models, especially the Artiva. However, as you move further up, the lights, the bonnet, the front fenders are all exactly the same as on the Toyota Yaris Cross. The headlight classes here are not 100% exactly the same as on the Toyota, as over there are some chrome bits within the headlight covers. Over here, it's all black, giving it a bit of that smoked, darker, sportier look. The lighting, by the way, is using full projector LEDs, which to me is a big step up compared to the previously reflector LED headlights in older Perodua models. But at the same time, this does not have an auto high beam feature, let alone the Artiva's adaptive driving beam function. That's a bit of a shame. Also missing compared to the Artiva are cornering lamps and sequential turn signal lights. Moving further down, this still has front fog lights, which a lot of other car brands have completely abandoned. Here, these are LED units, but this is only fitted to the top spec Traz H. The corner trim pieces are switched out completely for the base X version. Over there, instead of being gloss black, it's plain unfinished plastic instead, but at least there's no big gaping hole where the LED fogs would have been. At the bottom, the front lip has a lot of fake carbon fiber print, which personally I don't like, whereas this version that you see over here has that part completely covered up with the optional gear up accessories. This includes a body kit all around the car, a top grille cover, the side mirror caps, and even a funny looking double spoiler at the back. As usual, these gear up accessories are not cheap. The full exterior body kit alone will cost you 3,600 ringgit. And the car you see here, with all the options ticked both outside and inside, has over 6,000 ringgit worth of add-ons. Onto the side, both variants wear the same 17-inch dual-tone alloys. The design itself, I think it looks pretty good, until you see the much nicer looking ones on the Toyota Yaris Cross. As for the size, I think 17s are okay on the Perodua, until you focus solely on the thickness of the tyre itself. It looks a little bit too thick. But at the very least, we're getting pretty decent tyres over here. These are Toyo CR1, and this, by the way, is locally made here in Malaysia. It's among the very last brand that are still making tyres in Malaysia, because most other tyre brands have closed down their local factories, which is a pity. That, of course, increases this car's local content as a whole, and Perodua claims even at launch, the Traz already has 95% local content. Through its life, that number is only going to get higher and higher. This is a properly locally made car, not one that is simply locally assembled. Size-wise, this is about 4.3 meters long. That's a fair bit longer than the smaller Artiva at just under 4.1, but it's still not quite the size of a proper full-fledged B segment SUVs in our market. Things like the Proton X50, the Honda HR-V, and so on. This is still about half a class smaller than the Toyota Corolla Cross. But because this car was primarily designed for Indonesian roads, its ground clearance is pretty high at 210mm. Perhaps you don't see that as clearly on this fully body-kitted gear-up example, but on the base model you can really see that it sits rather high. Beyond that, because this is a fair bit smaller than other B-segment SUVs, it's quite a bit lighter as well. This is rated at just over 1.1 tons, about 100 kilos heavier than the Artiva, but over 200 kilos lighter than, say, the Proton X50 and the Chery Tiggo Cross. At the back, you'll see that the Traz has rear disc brakes, making it only the third Perodua model to have that feature, after the top spec Alza and the QV. As a whole, the shape of the Traz is pretty interesting as well. It's a lot more rounded and far more organic than the far more rugged looking Artiva. But at the same time, you can also see visual links between this and the Toyota RAV4. That's not a model that many Malaysians are going to be familiar with, but in the global markets, that is still the best-selling SUV in the entire world. So for this to look similar to that, that's still a cool thing to know. What I don't really like though is this over-the-top gear-up accessories like I mentioned earlier. This sticks out way too much, and even the bottom body kit, yep, it's a little bit much for me. Personally, I much prefer the cleaner look of the standard model. Beyond the trimmings though, this is pretty much exactly the same as the Toyota Yaris Cross, the ASEAN version of course. The taillights are identical and the same with the top spoiler and the tailgate as well. The Traz does have small differences in the center garnish over here. The shape has been adjusted very slightly, but until you put the two cars side by side, I don't think many of us will actually see the difference. By the way, the Yaris Cross is likely going to be launched here in Malaysia as well in the near future. By the time that happens, you can really see the closeness of these two models. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I suppose, depends on your personal point of view. I guess it's a nice thing to have a Perodua that looks very close to a Toyota. But on the other hand, if you are a Toyota owner looking at a car that looks too much like a Perodua, that's not such a positive thing, is it? Small details that you may be interested in, only the H has got the small model mark over here, whereas the X has that completely blank. And this is also the very first Perodua model to have LED lights for the number plates. Just like on the Ativa, you can have the Traz with a contrasting two-tone black roof look, but you gotta pay extra for that. And speaking of the roof, it's also missing the roof rails that are available on the Yaris Cross. But regardless of your color choice, the wing mirrors are always going to be black, even those without this rather garish looking gear up covers. What I certainly do appreciate is the addition of a keyless entry sensor on the front left door handle as well. This is as opposed to having just one on the driver's side door. This, I suppose, is one of those fringe benefits of this model being built from the ground up to Toyota levels and not Daihatsu's. However, it's not all good news here because, believe it or not, if you buy the base Traz X, that model does not come with keyless entry whatsoever. You have to take out the key fob out of your pocket and press lock or unlock. How old school is that? For a car that's priced at nearly 80,000 ringgit, that's borderline unacceptable to me, I think. Just to give you a bit more context, keyless entry is fitted as standard on the Ativa, Alza and Myvi. Even the 40,000 ringgit Azia X has it. So for a flagship Perodua model, not to get it, regardless of it being the base variant, is really hard to stomach. Moving on inside, again it looks no different to the Toyota Yaris Cross, save for a few detailed bits and pieces over here. The one thing that you will immediately notice, obviously, are all these garish red bits. To me, again, they are a little bit over the top. Well, actually not even a little bit, they are way over the top for me. Not only are they red, there's too much of it, and this is also a particularly bright shade of red. It's almost like a Mazda Soul Red Crystal kind of thing. I'm completely fine with the slightly darker red on the center piece over here and even those on the seats, but this shiny pieces over here all around the cabin as well, yeah, not a fan. Another issue I have is that this red piece doesn't even match the rest of the cabin. If you look at the back portion of the grab handles on the door cards, that's a different shade of orange, very similar to what we've seen before on the Ativa, but it does not match the red bits on the dashboard. But then again, I may not be the target market for this car because according to Perodua, this is designed as a car for current Myvi owners to upgrade to. And if you remember that car, the latest version of it, the top version, that's got even more red than this cabin. Some may like it, some may hate it, but apparently according to Perodua and its own internal research, most of its customers actually liked it that way, and hence they've taken the same approach with this one as well. This, by the way, is standard across the range, so you have the exact same look with the base X version too. What is different between the two are small little details, like this back plate of this air conditioning controls over here is finishing gloss black on the H but plain plastic on the X. Even the AC controls are different too. The base version has digital buttons, while the H gets upgraded to a single zone automatic climate control system. Here you can actually choose the temperature, and there's an automatic button that can adjust the fan to suit your predetermined temperature. Whether Malaysians would actually use this feature a lot at all, I'm not very sure. One thing I know for a fact, this does not have the M1, M2 memory functions that a lot of Perodua customers know and love. There is just a single blank button over here, and that's because the Traz, any variant of it, does not have a front window demister function. But thankfully it's got one for the rear screen, unlike the latest Asia. Right next to that is the dedicated lock and unlock button, which is a specific requirement for Perodua. This is not available in the original Toyota version. Another aspect that sets the two variants apart is the leather trim on the steering wheel and the center gear lever. This is only on the top spec H obviously, whereas the X gets these in plain plastic polyurethane. What is rather odd for Perodua though, even if you get the most expensive version of the Traz, you still get full fabric seats. What you see over here is the optional gear up seat covers, which comes with its own red strips and whatnot. But again, the red does not match the rest of the dashboard. The seats you do get as standard is full fabric with half pattern on the X, and fabric again but with full pattern on this H. So let me repeat that again. Even if you buy the range-topping Traz right now, you still have to spend a little bit extra to add leather seats on top. Yeah, it's a bit strange. How much extra exactly? 1,200 ringgit for the gear-up sleek seat covers. But now let's move on to more positive things. The headliner is full black on this car regardless of variant, which I always like. All the interior lighting is white LED, not yellow bulb. Again, very nice. And even the general build quality of this cabin is pretty good to the touch. Top half is all hard plastics, but once you get to the middle over here, it's really nicely padded and it's covered in leather as well. And surprisingly, the door cards are proper soft touch materials. It feels way more plush than an Artiva. Even the seats feel way bigger and more comfortable than the ones in the smaller SUV. And then there is the steering wheel. Finally, we get a mainstream Perodua with telescopic adjustment, meaning you can pull it in or push it away from you to get your ideal seating position. Previously, most Perodua models have been stuck with not having any telescopic adjustment for the steering wheel, while its more premium Toyota cousin had them. Now, this being based on a Toyota, we finally get it on a Perodua. But having said just that, it's not all roses, because just one look at the steering wheel, there is one big glaring omission. The entire right side of this control pod over here fully blanked out. So yes, the Traz, whichever variant you get, does not get any form of cruise control, whether passive or active. This is definitely a peculiar decision by Perodua, because the Myvi, the Alza, the Artiva all have this feature on hand, yet the new flagship model doesn't. It's the same story with the instrument cluster as well. While the rest of Perodua's DNGA based models all have the semi-digital gauges, this one somehow doesn't. It has rolled back to the old school analog dials. Now this does not look all that bad, it's very clear, it's sort of nice in an old school kind of way, but this is still definitely a step down compared to what we've seen before on cheaper, more affordable models. Now, before you say that this is Perodua's more premium option in terms of gauges, well, the latest Toyota Vios, also built on a DNGA platform of course, has this on the lower spec version but digital on the higher spec version. So yeah, that's that. Also downgraded compared to the Toyota version is the lack of power seats and a PM 2.5 cabin filter system. Moving on to the center screen over here, it's not too big, it's not too small, I think it's just nice. The standard interface is typical Perodua, where it looks a little bit messy, but that doesn't really matter because most of the time you will be using it with either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which looks really good on this decent sized screen. However, it's only available with a wired connection and not wireless. Beyond that, the X version gets a standard reverse camera, while the H gets upgraded to a full 360-degree parking cameras. And just in case, I've checked, it says settings in here, not setting. Well done, Perodua. Moving further down, you get a pair of USB chargers, one USB-C to charge your phones, and one USB-A to connect your phone to the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto function. Down here is an optional gear-up wireless charger for your smartphones, and it has a lot of these funny digital pattern that is replicated across all the gear-up accessories on the outside and even the inside too. Right in the middle is an electronic parking brake instead of a regular handbrake that you do get in the Artiva. But this is not the first Perodua to have it, because the top spec Alza already had this from 2 years ago. And of course it comes with an auto hold function too. Further down, you'll see a lot more gear up accessories. You've got these trapo style rubber mats, and on the sides, you've got illuminated side sails, which can change colors via this terribly labeled RGB light button next to the driver. One thing I really do like in here, however, you get a really soft padded center armrest and a clever cup holder system. If you've got a taller drinks can or one of those on-trend Stanley tumblers, you can use it in the tall mode. However, for smaller, shorter coffee cups, for instance, there is this little flap that you can unfold that will hold it in place much better. That's really clever. But two last things before we move on, the Perodua Traz comes standard with the Luma branded solar and security window tints. However, only the H grade comes with this old school dashcam, which doesn't look very good, and even the footage, it's not very clear either. Move on to the rear seats, and this is where the Traz goes well above and beyond what the Ativa offers. You get plenty more legroom back here, and headroom is not going to be an issue even if you're much taller. For your reference, I am 167 centimeters tall, but as you can see, even if I'm much taller, the seat back pushed much further back, there's still plenty of space to go around. In the middle here, you get rear aircon vents available for the first time on a non-MPV Perodua. Even the so-called overpriced Perodua QV doesn't have that, but we have it here in the Traz. The seats themselves are also very comfortable back here. The base is nice and long. You feel like you're supported in every way possible. The backrest, as you can see, is reclined quite a fair bit, but you can always adjust it to your own liking. In the middle over here, you've got a fold-down center armrest with two additional cup holders, and each seat will have its own adjustable headrest. Nice. One last thing that we've never ever seen in a Perodua are the soft touch door panels, even for the rear seats. For the Proton X50, this car's so-called closest competitor, while the front is all nice and soft, once you get to the back, it's all hard. Here, it's consistent all around. Onto the boot, the Traz has a powered tailgate, yet another Perodua first. Beyond that, it even has a kick sensor, useful if you got both your hands occupied, say with your children or even shopping bags. Just a small kick and the boot will automatically open. At the top of here, you've got two buttons, one to just close the tailgate and another one to close it and lock it afterwards. The boot itself is very spacious too. Perodua claims it has 471 litres of space back here, more than a full 100 litres more than what the Ativa offers. Compared to the Proton X50, that only has 330 litres of space. Beyond that, it's a pretty clever boot too. The floor can be moved further down to fit in taller items, and you've got additional cubby spaces on either sides of the floor. That's really nice. At the very bottom, you get a full-size spare wheel, but mounted on a slightly smaller 16-inch steel wheel. This is painted in bright yellow, so hopefully owners will only use these as temporary spare tires and not as a permanent replacement. Now on to the engine. Surprisingly, this does not get a new hybrid powertrain as many people did expect. Instead, it gets Perodua's, or rather Daihatsu's, usual tried and tested 1.5-litre 4-cylinder dual VVTi engine. This is the exact same engine you'd find in both the Myvi and the Alza, with the same transmission as well, Perodua's D66B. Here, the engine makes 106 PS and 138 Nm of torque, again similar with Perodua's other models. Together with the D66B, Perodua claims it can do over 21 km per litre, which is a fair bit more efficient than the Ativa with its turbo 1-litre 3-cylinder engine that only does around 19 km per litre. Whether this 1.5-litre naturally aspirated engine can be seen as any form of an upgrade over the 1-litre 3-cylinder engine in the Ativa remains to be seen. That will be up for the customers to decide. But the 4-cylinder refinement is definitely a big boon to potential customers. Not having a hybrid option, on the other hand, has to be seen as a big disappointment. But at the same time, Perodua explained that if they had used that option, the price of the car is going to go up even more, perhaps closer to the 100,000 ringgit mark, beyond what people would expect to pay for a Perodua, even one that is this big. It's also worth noting that this car's hybrid powertrain option is Toyota's full hybrid system, the one with 2 electric motors, and not Daihatsu's e-smart hybrid systems. So that is likely going to be reserved on Toyota's version of this car here in Malaysia. That will also create a much bigger difference between the two models. The Perodua will have an NA engine, whereas the Toyota will have a hybrid option. This is as opposed to, say, the Aros and the Toyota Rush, as well as the Alza and the Toyota Veloz, all having the same engine and gearbox combinations. All this really ties back to Perodua's theme for this model: simplicity. It's a simple, naturally aspirated engine, no turbo, no intercooler, no complicated hybrid systems. It's just a plain old tried and tested regular engine that everybody is familiar with. In the long run, this for sure is going to be cheaper, easier to maintain, even after your warranty has long ended. Also adding on to this car's cheaper maintenance cost is the use of a regular starter battery. The Traz, unlike most other Perodua cars, does not have an auto start-stop function or the eco idle system. That is a function that most Perodua owners would have turned off anyway, and it also comes with a requirement: the use of a far more expensive EFB battery. Here it doesn't have that feature, which nobody will use anyway, and the battery is also much cheaper to replace later on. All good there. Next, let's touch on safety. Like I mentioned earlier, this does not have more advanced ADAS features like adaptive cruise control, level 2 semi-autonomous driving, and so on. What it does have is basic partial ADAS, which is to say it has AEB or autonomous emergency braking and blind spot monitor and so on. That is a definite disappointment, especially coming from Perodua, which of late has been pushing out all of its ADAS systems across all models and variants. To see its newest, most expensive flagship model only having partial ADAS, the same level pretty much as the Proton Saga, that's just not right. At the very least though, this car is built on a far more modern platform compared to the Saga, so even with partial ADAS, it still comfortably gets a full 5-star ASEAN NCAP crash safety rating, which it shares with the Toyota Yaris Cross. By the way, in terms of safety, both variants are the exact same. You get 6 airbags and partial ADAS, even on the cheaper Traz X. So there you go guys, all you need to know about the new Perodua Traz SUV, the brand's new flagship model slotting in above the Artiva. Whether this is going to be a big enough upgrade for existing Artiva owners, I'm not so sure. But for those who are already thinking of selling their existing Myvi, this is a big, massive step up if they can afford the big price jump. So anyway, what do you think of this car, its price, its looks and specs? Do let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching everyone, and stay safe. This video is sponsored by Hong Leong Bank. If you're looking to buy a new Perodua, including the new Traz, you can now get fast loan approval for Hong Leong Bank car financing at any Perodua showroom nationwide. All you have to do is bring your MyCard, driver's license and income documents, and you can get your loan approved instantly.